Would you give up your home for your religion?
We've always had a place here. We've always called it home. The community has mostly been evicted.
Short Creek, technically 2 towns, Hilldale, Utah, and Colorado City, Arizona. The community straddles the state line, just south of Zion National Park. Not called Zion by chance. These are sacred lands to the FLDS, or Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints. The FLDS split from the mainstream Mormon church a century ago and settled in Short Creek, isolated in the desert, where they could practice polygamy and follow their fundamentalist faith undisturbed. Their lifestyle is specific and strict. Men marry multiple wives. Everyone obeys the authority of the church, and the world is kept out.
This is the only way of life I've ever known. Because everyone around you was like you. Most of them are related in one way or another. It was like a great big family here. Evictions are like the ultimate spoiling of your goods.
They would rather give up a $500,000 house than sign a piece of paper that symbolized that they were violating what they believed in.
That piece of paper? It's an agreement with a land trust that owns almost all land in Short Creek. The FLDS Church used to control the trust, but now the trust is in the hands of those who've left the church. In 1942, members of the FLDS donated their houses and all their property to that land trust called the United Effort Plan, or the UEP.
It was land for their children and their children's children and their children's children to grow up safe and secure in a place to live. If they didn't want to live our way of life, everybody knew you could go if you wanted to, but you couldn't have the land. It belonged to the Lord and to the church.
The UEP Trust still owns most of the land in Short Creek.
It controls the town, it controls the property, it controls the fields, it controls the cemeteries and the parks.
But the church no longer controls the trust. That's because of Warren Jeffs. Warren Jeffs is the prophet and leader of the FLDS. He's in prison for life for sexual abuse of minors, many young girls who were his child brides. In 2005, when Warren Jeffs landed on the FBI's most wanted list and vanished on the run, the state took over the land trust.
That was a direct attack on our faith.
The FLDS became even more closed off and distrustful of the outside world.
Well, Uncle Warren's in prison on false charges.
Inside the church, information is kept limited. They're taught not to trust the government or believe the news, so the faithful are in fierce denial about Warren Jeffs being a convicted pedophile, and still believe he is their prophet who speaks the word of God. From prison, he continues to control the church. Under Warren Jeffs' leadership, rules became stricter, and many left the faith, whether by choice or excommunication. Those still in the church aren't allowed to interact with former members, known to them as apostates.
We don't talk to apostates. We feel like they've made their choice. Go ahead, go live your life. Don't bother us. The ones that came back after they already left and came back to grab land, they should leave.
Many of these so-called apostates stay in Short Creek, living side by side but totally cut off from their neighbors still in the faith.
For me, I didn't believe in the exact same things as everyone around me. If I didn't go to the same church, that I was going to be ostracized. I made the decision to leave. I had no intention of ever moving back to this place.
Jeff Barlow moved back to Short Creek to work for the UEP. He oversees the evictions. In order to stay in houses owned by the trust, occupants have to sign that agreement with them, sort of like a lease. But that's a problem for the faithful, because the trust is now managed entirely by former members of the church. And the FLDS won't interact with them or sit on the trust's board alongside them. Religious homes won't communicate at all with the trust, pay property taxes, or sign their agreement. It's not anything specific in the agreement, just that it means dealing with apostates, which is forbidden. So FLDS families are being evicted by the trust.
Everybody off the property, or I will call law enforcement to have you removed. Is there anybody
and
inside?
And I stand 100%
Is there anybody inside?
for the prophet that you grew up standing for.
Is there anybody still inside the house?
I don't care. You
I need you
did your...
I need you off the property then.
I'm going to watch you kick me out of my home.
This is what they want us to sign. To sign this is like saying, I acknowledge you own our sacred land, and therefore I no longer am part of the FLDS.
When taxes get to be 5 years delinquent, the trust loses that property to the county. We're going to have to take action to protect the property and give them an exact list of the things that they need to do to stay in the home.
Then we got a 10-day pay or vacate notice. At that point, we started packing up.
I always come back to you.
Always come back to me.
For the FLDS, their narrative is one of religious persecution. But from the outside, it's a bit like they're opting into their plight, acting on seemingly arbitrary restrictions. But to them, it's real, regardless of the right or wrongness of their ideology or the crimes of their leader. It's what they've been taught all their lives. To them, not only does going against the church mean being ostracized by their community, it's literally a matter of being banished from heaven in the afterlife. That, to them, is worse than eviction. Pretty much everyone in town is either in the religion or used to be, except for Christine. Christine moved to Short Creek last year. Though never FLDS, she once practiced polygamy herself with a man she believed to be a prophet. The experience was extremely traumatizing for her.
This is the famous creek.
So now she's motivated to be an advocate for women in similar polygamous situations. She runs a charity called Voices for Dignity.
I just love it here.
She's taken on the role of acting as a go-between for the FLDS and the UEP. By doing this, she hopes to bring a stop to the evictions.
And there are people that are in desperate need of housing. They're not just losing their home, they're losing their community, they're losing their sacred places, they're losing their social support system, they're losing everything they've ever known.
An FLDS food processing plant was evicted. The FLDS meeting house was evicted.
Is this even possible?
Then the storehouse was evicted.
Everything the storehouse had was donated or consecrated, and the storehouse would distribute it to the needy.
This was the storehouse, surrounded by huge walls. The church built lots of walls around town. These walls are being torn down by the trust for new tenants. This is really emotional for everyone in town, both in and out of the religion. People stop to watch. Gelene was kicked out of the religion 4 years ago. She built these walls with everyone in the church. So it's weird for her seeing the walls finally come down.
We'd go without food, we'd go without clothing, we'd go without everything we could to help build those walls. To see it all just be knocked down in minutes. It meant liberation, but it's hard, it's emotional. Overnight, I was cut off. My husband was an apostate and he had tainted me.
Although she stayed in Short Creek, she hasn't had any contact with her friends and family in the faith ever since.
I was afraid to even get out of the car because I didn't know if they would accept me or even talk to me.
They're like, who is that? That was my best friend. I'm Lori's best friend.
I didn't recognize you.
Not everyone is sad about the walls falling.
No, I left the religion. These dear folks just don't get it. They think their holy prophet is a perfect priest of man, but he's nothing but a pedophile. I am really glad the walls are coming down.
I know the truth. You're a single girl.
There is a deep and literal symbolism in these walls coming down. Norma's home was also posted for eviction, but she came up with a plan to keep her house, despite the fact that she won't sign the trust's agreement.
And I wrote up a letter of intent. It says, I intend to live here at this address, to pay the taxes yearly. It was not addressed to the reformed UEP because I don't acknowledge that they have any right to do it.
And then Christine brings the letter to the UEP for her. This means Norma herself isn't violating her faith. This might seem a bit roundabout, but it's a huge step in bridging the chasm between those in and out of the church.
We were able to bypass this violation of their religion through this agreement. These evictions were stopped.
Are you able to reach an agreement?
They have paid delinquent taxes. Going forward, they've also agreed to meet some of the minimum requirements for occupancy. We would just ask the court to dismiss without prejudice.
All right.
This is Barlow. Can you say that?
We know each other.
Come out, touch us.
So once we get that letter, we'll update our records to show that the taxes are paid, and then we can avoid an eviction altogether.
This is wonderful.
I'm excited.
So what's next?
What's next is helping people feel safe enough here that they dare come back.
We've been able to stop the eviction of 4 houses already with this new method.
So that one is, we got the letter, take the 2 weeks off of that one.
Do you know, okay, when the next batch will come?
We're supposed to be doing 20 every 2 weeks. What I'd rather do is give you time to talk to him first.
As long as we can find out that a letter is coming, then he can delay it more. Does that mean they're going to be off the posting list?
Yeah, if they're doing taxes and the letter's forthcoming, I will take them off.
Can we get the letter today?
You think you know who you are, and you're set and stable in your life and your religion and where you're going, and then all of a sudden one day you have to relearn who you are. And I started looking and searching into the Warren Jeffs files, and until that moment I had no idea. It's a hard road.
Some people love the changes, some people love the diversity, other people look back at the 60s and the 70s and they long for those times where the whole town all belonged to the same religion and it was more homogenous. But we live where we live in the time we live, and that's right now and right here. We're all family, we're all part of the same community. We're gonna have to find a way to coexist.
I want my grandchildren to live here and to love it and to be safe. We love our fences because it keeps our children in and other people out. It's still our sacred land.
If you're interested in more land rights issues in Utah, Bears Ears National Monument was just opened to mining prospectors. Now anyone can stake a claim on the land, so NBC tried to. Check out the video here.